Welcome to this special episode. It's a crossover episode. This is a United Nations of Horror and Kingology episode. And today I'm joined by my frequent co-host from the Kingology podcast, Anthony Retardo. Hello, Anthony. How are you?
Mark, I'm doing great. How are you today?
Not bad, not bad. And I actually should mention this is kind of also touching a bit of TV terror because we may refer to the mini series too, right? So
yeah. You know, if we talk about it enough, I might use some clips.
We'll see. So we're covering it, chapter 2. Okay, so it's been out 3 weeks at the point we're recording, I think, something like that. I saw it probably the first week it was out. How about you? Did you see it fairly close to opening?
I did. I saw it like pretty quickly after it opened, like if not the first night, within the first weekend.
Yeah.
And I saw it again. I saw half of it last night, and let me explain that. So I just joined up with, we have a chain called Regal Theaters here. Yes. In the U.S. I don't know if you have Regal over there.
No, we have the occasional cinema called Regal, but it may not be linked at all, you know.
Well, they've got this new thing where you just pay one price per month and you can see all the movies. You can just go to movies until you throw up, you know? And so...
we have our equivalent is called Sydney World.
Oh, okay.
But we have a similar thing, yes.
And I did the math because, you know, I wanted to see Rambo Last Blood and I wanted to see Angel Has Fallen, which I saw both of those. And I'm like, you know, as soon as you see 2 or 3 films, it's worth your while to pay for it. So then in preparation for this, I wanted to watch It Chapter 2, but it was late and I held out. Like I went about halfway through, and by 11:30 I was like falling asleep. So I had seen enough to really jog my memory and kind of burn it in enough that I felt better prepared for today. So I saw it 1.5 times.
Cool. So today we're going to be talking about the film. We're going to be kind of comparing it to the book, though I am way more familiar with the book than you are, aren't I? So we won't go into the book too much, but we'll go into it a little. And we're also going to compare it to the miniseries. It does beg comparison, actually, in a number of spots. But for now, we'll kind of stick to the, It Chapter 2 mainly, I think. Though we may, I think, go back to talking about Chapter 1 this part. Okay, this was an interesting one. Personally, I found it was more episodic in nature than the first film. It was which was much more of a narrative structure, which is interesting because the book has an episodic nature. So in tone, Chapter 2 actually felt more like the book to me. What do you think? That's fair? Do you think it was episodic?
Oh yeah, it was definitely episodic, and I think for some reason, it feels more episodic than the miniseries. Now, I have to to explain. I read half the novel, and I kind of quit on it. Not that it was so bad; it was just circumstances and attention span. So I hope to finish it one day. But I'm more familiar with the miniseries as my primary reference, and half the novel at this point. So
yeah. But even if you read half, you may remember, for example, I'm not just episodic in terms of what's happened to the kids and the adults and flipping between. There's even major sections called the interludes where you get a completely different part of the history of Derry, such as the Black Spot Club burning down and like a gangster's getting killed by everyone in town, which are referenced a little in these 2 films. Usually by pictures of murals in the background. Quite an interesting way of doing it.
They kind of show it just in bits and pieces in the movie, but I do remember that because King has got this big canvas to just focus on that for a little while.
Yeah, and he does often go off on tangents on paths. I always felt that it might have been a trick that he picked up from a British writer who he does talk about in his other works he kind of admires, called James Herbert, who in some of his earlier books would just go off on tangents and tell little vignette, almost EC comic style tales within the bigger canvas. And King does that too, right? He'll happily do that. And this film kind of has that feel. So it's funny, I've seen some criticism like, it's not it's keeps going backwards and forwards on this and that. But it's like, well, that's how the book is actually. But that doesn't mean it's justified as a film. But it is interesting. It's kind of picking that up. It's getting more back to the source. In my opinion.
It's in there, yeah. And by the way, James Herbert, most famous for The Rats, I think, or simply Rats.
The Rats and The Fog.
Yeah.
The Fog in particular is one where he sort of goes off on little tangents, tells little horror stories within the main story, which I really quite like. It's gruesome. It's very gruesome. It's more gruesome than King even, but it's kind of cool.
Now, I forgive the episodic nature. I kind of, if people feel the pivoting, like they can hear the gears shifting in the film, when they go into like every character has to collect their artifact. There's that thing where they all have to confront their fear, and there's sort of an artifact that they take away from it. So for example, the paper boat, which the whole story begins with, is one thing that gets taken out of that sort of episode, and where they're sort of seeing a vision, or they're in some unreal situation where Pennywise is showing them things that aren't really real.
Yeah.
But it reminded me a lot of the TV show Lost, where you had this main through line, but because it was very character driven, you'd then get this deep dive on each character, and there would be a prolonged flashback. And it kind of felt like that because you had this big ensemble cast that you had to get to know, in just a few hours.
Yeah, in many ways, I could see it being remade again at some point in the structure of what is happening a lot now in sort of streaming TV, which is like a 10 or 12 part miniseries, and it would really suit that structure as well. The miniseries works, but it was very contracted. And these films work, but they're contracted. But I can see an even broader canvas would work quite well for it, but not too broad, not excessively. So yeah, it starts with this is, I like one of the other callbacks to the book in this film, which is kind of really clear, is the opening scene of the film is pretty much the opening scene of the book, which is Adrian Mellon being attacked by a gang because he's gay. That definitely happens in the book, and even the sort of, and I should stress we're going to get into spoilers. Go see this film and come back and listen to this if you haven't seen it. Even to the bite underneath the arm. Pennywise biting him specifically under, and all the balloons. And
exactly.
And the balloons floating in the book. I think there's an emphasis that the balloons are actually floating the opposite direction to the wind. And the guy even notices, the lover of this man even notices that before he sees the clown bite him. So it's kind of a nice sort of through line.
Yeah, it was a major scene in the novel, so to see it, it was pretty with high fidelity rendered in the film, and down to like I noticed like where he bit him. It was all like very accurate to the book.
Yes, and the murder of Adrian Mellon is the instigator of Mike calling people, so that that's how it all kicks off, and people slowly remembering stuff, which was done reasonably well. One of the little issues, I quite like this film, I have to stay right out of the bat, but one of the little issues I had was in the first film, I think they really got right the insidious nature of evil that sort of permeates the town. In this, apart from the Adrian Mellon scene, the town is just the place it's happening. So I feel a little more, with a few exceptions, when they go to certain places, there's stuff happening, but it doesn't particularly involve the townspeople. Does that make sense? It's more like the town's almost empty. Almost, it feels like.
Yeah, it's really the sole focus is on just our heroes, which is the Losers Club.
Yeah,
and whatever antagonists they have, with principally Pennywise. But this is unlike other King novels where you've got just a gaggle of people. You feel like you have a sense of the town like deeply, like whether it's a story like Needful Things, or when we covered Tommyknockers, that's like very, very deep into all the towny people.
Yeah.
This one's not quite on that level.
Yeah, I did like quite a lot of the episodic parts actually, where each character confronts something. I thought they've done really well. The ones that really jumped out at me actually were the ones that happened in the miniseries that I quite liked, which is specifically the Bev Marsh going back to her old house.
Yes.
It was similar but different.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of played it almost for comedy, in sort of nervous laughter. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
In the movie, with the woman running around naked without Bev being aware, that was clearly played for sort of comic effect before it gets terrifying, which is kind of unusual. And actually, I think it's really well done in the miniseries too, with Bev noticing little things about the woman as she's talking to her. I thought that was really well done in the miniseries, and I like this version too. So that
absolutely, yeah, totally agree. That is one of the stronger scenes in the miniseries, where Annette O'Toole as Bev is in that same situation. It doesn't go quite to the heights of spectacle that the movie is able to go to, but it's very, very creepy and effective.
Indeed,
when they're just sitting there having tea and things are not right.
And also one of my favourite scenes from the miniseries is also done very well, I think, in the movie, which is the Chinese restaurant. I think they were both done very well. The practical effects, in fact, you know what? I think the miniseries practical effects stand up better than the CGI effects in the movie are going to stand up. Actually, I've got a feeling.
I have to agree with you. There's something about I know, like in the miniseries, some of these things are just literally someone inflating a balloon in some scenes, and it's when you think about it from that standpoint, you can see people finding it laughable. But that Chinese restaurant scene in the movie, honestly, it kind of took me out a little bit. It was so like weird and cartoonish that I'm just so thinking that, oh wow, look what the CGI team came up with, as opposed to very grounded kind of a presentation.
And funny enough, the weird little creatures in the movie reminded me a lot of the CGI from The Mist. Actually, it just had a similar kind of feel.
Yes,
to me. Okay, let's get on to the opening scene when they all get together is the Chinese restaurant. Bill Hader is very funny as Richie. From the start and pretty much all the way through, and he's got, it's like, look at you. He looks at Bev and he looks at Ben and he says, "You two look great. What happened to me?" Was a great comment. Right, okay, let's talk about casting. And
I gotta stop you there. Because when you get to, I think you and I are the age where we can relate to these characters, where it kind of plays to that thing of, like, if you've had a high school reunion and you're catching up with old friends, there is that anxiety of fear of like how you're aging and other people are aging. It's just something you can't appreciate unless you're at that age and you've got that weird like time capsule thing where you're picking up where you left off with people, 20 years ago,
Yeah, no, you've got to avoid getting like the frozen grin or, expression if you meet someone and they look radically different.
Yes.
Either they put on a lot of weight or they look somehow quite different. It's and you don't want to be saying anything silly but it's tough.
Yes.
Yes, I really felt they captured that. But okay, casting. Personally, thought casting was great here. Any standouts for you?
I thought they were solid all around. The guy who played Eddie, he was driving me crazy. I've seen him in some other things, and I couldn't place him. But
his name's Ransom. I can't remember his first name. It's James Ranson. Sorry, Ranson. He looks like a lot of other people. He looks a bit like Orlando Bloom, maybe, and other actors. That may be it.
I
just
can't
checking his
place
filmography right now. And honestly, I don't recognize any of this.
Yeah, the continuity, though, between him and the child counterpart was excellent. He has those dark, intense eyes and the neurotic way of behaving. excellent continuity between those two characters, the adult and child.
Yeah, that was a particularly good one. Eddie was a particularly great match for me, and I also felt Bill Hader really felt like the adult version of the child actor. Yeah, what was his name? Wolfhart. I can't remember his name.
The kid from Stranger Things.
The kid from Stranger Things. That he did feel like a grown-up version of that, Richie. So that was good. James McAvoy, maybe not quite so much, but not bad. Jessica Chastain, yeah, very good. Though the younger version really looked like Amy Adams to me. Really looked like.
Oh yes, very strongly. Exactly. Yeah, she would be a perfect ringer for her.
So and also the grown-up version of Mike too. I was very pleased that Mike's character was much better developed in the second film than the first. Actually, that worked a lot. Was one of the things I was very pleased to see, because I always thought it was a little underwritten in the first one, and they changed some stuff about him, which it's hard to figure out why they stopped him being the town historian, but whatever, they did that. But he was much better served as a character in this second film.
Yeah, and he's the driver he's the guy that's making it happen, bringing them together, holding them to account. So you want to know more about him, and they did that character justice.
Yes, they did, and also even though we don't see him very much, the adult Stanley I thought was a good match too. So yeah, it kind of it worked all around for me. I am looking forward to seeing this film again. Actually, just talking about it is juicing me to, want to see it again. So I will be getting the Blu-ray and probably watching the pair sometime. So looking forward to that.
I've got to see the first one again now, because I haven't seen the first one in a very, very long time. So I really have been kind of itching to see that. And then the miniseries again. That miniseries for me is like comfort food. It's the kind of thing I can just settle into and really enjoy.
I really like it. I'm obviously Tim Curry, and the child section's very good, and there's bits of the adult section are not so good, but there are some bits I really like, such as the Chinese menu scene and Bev Marsh going back to her old house, partly because Annette O'Toole's a babe, but
yes, I love Annette O'Toole.
She is fantastic.
Hey, I got to ask you before I forget, because one of the differences in the miniseries, and I don't know if this was a thing in the book or an element from the book, but if you remember in the miniseries, one of the characters had a fear that was derived from the movie I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and he sees, the werewolf
in it's
a
Richie.
High school jacket. Okay, was that Richie?
It was Richie.
Was that from the book? Because it didn't make it into these movie adaptations.
It was in the book. Yes, it definitely was in the book, and it was in the miniseries too, right? So which is what we're talking. But it did make it here. But there was all sorts of creatures in the book. There was, Rodan was in the book briefly, chasing Mike. So which is kind of weird as hell. That in the book though, the Rodan had big red bobbles as well. But there's Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein's monster, werewolf. A lot of them are there briefly, albeit briefly, but a lot of them were there in the book. So you can't put them all in. But the werewolf edition in the miniseries is a good edition, especially when they use silver. That kind of sort of ties into.
Yes, that's right.
If you believe you can harm Pennywise, you can harm Pennywise is the sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it all hinged on belief.
Yeah, the thing in the book they did carry through was the whole Henry Bowers thing. In the book, he is in Juniper Hill, and and Pennywise helps him escape, and he gets to the town, and pretty much how we see him act in the movie is how it was in the book. And always in the book, it's almost like they kind of threw this character away. He doesn't. He builds up to something, but he's not. Apart from one attack, he doesn't really do much. And that was pretty much the same in the movie, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, it does some damage for sure. Attacking Mike and stuff, but it's kind of a bit underused, and that was the same. But there's an even bigger character underused in the book that what didn't make it here, which is Bev Marsh's husband does also go to the town, but he doesn't really do much once he's there. And also the actress wife of Bill, turns up, and that didn't happen in the movie either. So they did some contractions. Unfortunately, some of the contractions they did, you didn't quite understand from just seeing the movie. I don't think how significant it was to link in their old life and their new. I'm not sure, for example, the use of the bike was as well served as it could have been. I think actually the miniseries did it better.
Yeah, the miniseries did it a little bit better. It was a little more prominently shown and became a way that he bonded with Mike by riding the bike together.
One of the other things about this film was it was funny. It was pretty funny. Funnier than a lot of comedies, in fact. There was a lot of humour in this. A lot of it around Bill Hader, to be fair. But
yes,
it did make me laugh quite a bit a few times.
Yeah, it was funny. This is like a stellar example of how there's a very intertwined relationship between horror and humor, and this one balances them out very, very well. You know, a lot of funny repartee between the kids and their adult counterparts and all that. And then I found it very, very frightening. Actually, I found some of the Pennywise scenes just unbearable. They're particularly how there would often be this pause before he would strike, you know?
You didn't quite know where it was coming, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. But, great balance of humor and horror.
I always find that's a sign of a good director, or in fact, a great director, that you can see a film 10 times, but you can't quite get the feel for when it's coming. Hitchcock was a master at that. You watch Psycho a dozen times, you're never quite sure when, the guy going up the stairs is going to be stabbed. It's just like that. Hitchcock could do that, and there's a touch of that in this film too. I thought Pennywise was actually stronger in the first film in terms of he had more to do. In this, he was kind of just messing with them, wasn't he? Which is the same in the miniseries, right? Sometimes it's a point where, well, why is he just messing with them? Why doesn't he kill them? And you get that in the miniseries, and you get that in this. But there's a reason for that. It's because he's not quite as strong as he was. And he's trying to terrify them, in effect.
Yes, yeah. Although they do depict him as a devouring monster when he does show up. There's so many scenes. That one scene with the little girl who chases a firefly under the bleachers of the game. That one in particular had me coiled up in fear like a little girl, just waiting for him to strike. So yeah,
it was very well written, that scene. You could see he was like reading her mind and manipulating her. And again, let's actually compare the Pennywise's. Tim Curry's one seems much more grounded in where he's at and understanding what he's doing. This one drifts off, doesn't he? And he's kind of detecting stuff and then reacts to what is detective. He feels a little less in the moment to me.
Yeah, this one's a little different, a more eccentric type of personality, and he drifts off and then he comes back in the moment. It's a very interesting performance. I like it. I'm not inclined to pit them against each other. I totally buy into this expression of it and the other. It's kind of like with Batman movies, right? You can embrace different, you shoot that character through the prism of different directors and stories, and it comes out a little bit different, but you can accept them each on their own terms.
Indeed. In fact, in my mind, Pennywise is kind of comparable to the Joker in such film, because of the nature of him. The Joker is a same kind of crazed sort of personality that is kind of almost working on a different level to everyone else, and Pennywise is too.
And another example of how
also
a character
another scene.
It gets expressed a little differently. Yeah,
indeed. There was another scene I really liked that I don't think was ever in the miniseries. Was certainly in the book. Was where Richie is in the town square and I'm blanking on the statue's name. Is it Paul Bunyan?
The Paul Bunyan,
Yes, it's Paul Bunyan. That coming to life. That was an important one in the book, because in the book, Richie denies ever seeing anything weird, but we get to know that he actually did by, seeing this statue starting attacking him. And it's kind of reflected.
A great example, though, if you had to sort of, where there's a legitimate comparison in what the miniseries could have achieved versus this film, obviously, today's CGI made that Paul Bunyan scene. You just couldn't have done it too well back then.
They did it slightly different in the book. In the film, a little actually, but in the book, it's kind of an interesting point because he doesn't believe any of this Pennywise stuff, but he gets chased by Henry Bowers and his gang. He manages to get away, but after a long chase where he's badly scared that they're going to catch him, and if they catch him, he's not in a public place, they're going to really hurt him, but he manages to get away and he's resting in the park. So he's just been terrified, and it's at that point Pennywise starts interacting with him. So that's kind of an interesting, and it's not explicit, it's just, if you think about it, you get it. If you don't think about it, you wouldn't. It's just, it's a point of fear that's where Pennywise starts to get, can get into your head. So that was kind of interesting. Another thing in this film, that was also in the book but not in the miniseries, was the Ritual of Chud, where they go through a ceremony. There's a kind of a weird bit where Mike drugs Bill deliberately, which is really odd because that doesn't happen in any other sort of version of this story, to make him see things. And then they go through the Ritual of Chud where they start seeing stuff. But in the book, it's way more cosmic than is presented in the film, which in that not only do they kind of see where Pennywise arrives on this planet or this dimension or whatever craft is that brings him, that they also Bill kind of goes galactic and sort of is drifting through the universe and sees the thing that everything rests on, which is the turtle, and he can interact with the turtle in his he's passing by thought, having a conversation with the cosmic thing that is called the turtle. But that would be kind of difficult to do in a movie, frankly.
I think so.
Yeah, you kind of see where they left.
That's
out.
where that's an example where I didn't get far enough into the book, where the whole turtle concept is new on me, so I have no idea how you would deal with that.
We'll park that for now because we got some feedback about that specifically, so I wouldn't mind coming back to that maybe. In terms, do you feel the character development of each of the characters, seeing how what they were going through, was well served for each of them?
Yeah, if you look at all of them, they each get enough equal time that none of them feel like cardboard cutouts or anything. You get enough of a feel for them. Now that's the one thing, though, I have to say, there's something about the miniseries where I felt like I got to know the children characters and their what shaped them a little bit better. A case in point would be Eddie and his mother, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I just feel like the miniseries gives more attention to some of these kids. So
it's an interesting comparison. If you do get through the book, I think you'll have even more thoughts about it, because again, that's slightly different again, and is. And often when you get these kind of things, the TV versions tend to coarsen things like that because they have to be contracted. So they have to kind of make a point in a much more succinct way, which often, not always, but often coarsens that kind of thing. So I'd be interested. Though she was kind of quite a gross, caricaturish kind of mother in the book too, to be fair. So there is that. We get the ritual, and they're all kind of having their moments. It's kind of, I don't know what I was expecting for part 2, but it was kind of nice to get the children back, a fair bit actually, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
And I was wondering, honestly, I was wondering if they'd filmed those scenes when they were filming part 1 to be put into part 2. But apparently some of it was, they were definitely older and they were CGI to look younger, and I could not see the seams there, really.
Yeah. I was wondering the same thing, because especially with kids that are around puberty and they're going to be changing very quickly. So, and having seen like the character Michael on Stranger Things, which would be Richie in this show. I was wondering if they would have filmed a lot of that like a couple of years ago. So very interesting.
Apparently it's CG. About that. I also feel like we've already sort of touched on Eddie. They all kind of did look like the older versions of themselves. Perhaps James McAvoy not so much, actually. But the rest of them did. Ben, the older Ben, did look like it was Ben, slimmed down and buffed up. It looked like the child actor to me.
Yes,
so
yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they did have good continuity.
Yeah. We also, one of the things I also loved about this, and it feeds into the humour, is we had a few callbacks to 80s movies throughout this. I definitely caught a reference to The Thing. Did you catch that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that one you can't miss. If you've seen The Thing at least one time, I don't know how you could miss that one. Down to the exact reaction dialogue, that was great.
Indeed, indeed, when I saw the head start growing legs, I thought that looks like The Thing, and then we got the reaction dialogue, and it was like, yep, that's The Thing.
Yeah, and you have that moment where like, are they shamelessly ripping this off? Yeah. And then you're thinking, are they homaging it? And then no, they're just directly sort of stealing it for a laugh, and it's very funny. Yeah,
and there's also an excellent reference to Die Hard that just makes me laugh.
What was that? I missed that.
Okay, it was where Bill Hader stands up to Pennywise near the end and said, "Yippee-ki-yay, mother!" and then the deadlights come on. And he goes, his face drops.
Right.
He's a really... I'm looking forward to seeing that one little reaction shot again, because his acting, his physical acting in that is amazing, because it is literally everything relaxes. It's like, yippee-ki-yay, mother. It really made me laugh. It really did make me laugh.
And there was the other callback to the miniseries in the locker scene. Do you remember that?
There was, is that the Kiss Me Fat Boy?
Kiss Me Fat Boy.
Kiss Me Fat Boy. That isn't in the book. So that is a direct reference. So they nicely referenced the miniseries in part 1, didn't they? With the head of Tim Curry's Pennywise in the clown room, and now they're doing it again with the specific piece of dialogue.
I'm forgetting. I either missed it or forgot it. Tell me, you see Tim Curry's version of the clown?
Version of the clown head in the clown room where Richie, as a boy, has to go, or he's locked in.
Ah, okay.
If you look, you'll see it. Kiss Me Fat Boy. I think I need to get a T-shirt made of that. I think that's. We often bandy around in UNH. Should we get a T-shirt range? And I have to say, I think we've come up with 3 slogans, over the years of what we'd like to see on a T-shirt. Kiss Me Fat Boy is one of them. The other one is, and this is a joke I often do on Becky. Becky's going to be swearing at me through which is too old for Tom Atkins. Because Tom Atkins likes the young ladies in the movies. And
there you go.
The other one is Captain Kronos' "Oh, I'll Have You." So Kiss Me Fat Boys front and centre, though, it has to be said, as a T-shirt logo. We do like that. It was nice to see. And there was lots of wonderful little things in this. I liked all the vignette stuff. I think I preferred the present representation of the town in the first one. I thought it was much stronger, and it was a much stronger as a narrative movie. But I think the second one really felt more like the book and worked for me quite well.
It did. When it opened with that scene with the abuse of the 2 guys in the opening and throwing him into the river. That's just totally the novel. So yeah,
The Dark Heart of Derry, right? It definitely is. How do you think it compares to Chapter 1? Have you got a preference?
No, I'll tell you. As I said, like I I'm due for a rewatch so I can firm up my memory of it. But honestly, I remember consciously feeling as I was watching Chapter 2 for the first time that it felt very seamless, and I was aware it might have been out like a day or two, so I was aware that there might have been some mixed reaction and people saying it's not as good as the first one. But I honestly I felt like it was had perfect continuity and tone and had no problem with the actors. So
Yeah.
I was fine with it. It feels like if you could put them all together, you're not going to see the seams.
Yeah, I think you have that. I think I agree with you. I personally do prefer Chapter 1, but I've got I think I've got a reason. The reason I think I prefer it, and I say I prefer it, I score them the same. I consider them about on a par, but I have a slight preference for 1. And I think that is because I've seen it more. It's simply I have seen it more, so I'm more familiar with the great stuff in it. And I think when I watch 2 more, I think they're going to be just one thing in my head. I don't think they're going to be 2 films anymore. There is because it is the same story. It is the same story because Chapter 2 does flow back into Chapter 1 quite a bit. It's really hard to sort of disentangle them. I don't think 2 could work on its own, but 1 can. I think 2 needs 1 to be coherent, properly coherent to a watcher. But I'd rather see both of them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So how do you think? So we both have a very, very, very fond of the miniseries, right? Have you a preference? Do you prefer the films or the miniseries?
Well, now that I've been able to spend some time with the films over the last couple of years, and they're a part of my consciousness, and it's one of the lenses that now once you see something through a certain lens, you can't unsee it that way. I'm on board with this vision, this expression of the story. I have to say I have a fondness for the miniseries where I probably prefer it on some level, but I'm not saying that to diminish this film version. It's very good.
Yeah, I think they just operate in different spaces, don't they? It's a bit like some remakes. You like both versions of the film, right? I like
exactly
the 1953 version of Invaders from Mars, and I like the 1986 version of Invaders.
Exactly.
They operate on different levels. They're superficially the same, but they're operating in different ways. And in many ways, the miniseries and this pair of films are kind of similar.
Exactly. I was having this conversation with people at, I think, the Horror Etc. forum. And, so many examples. You can think of like the 1956 Body Snatchers, and then the 78 Kaufman, the Blob, and then you can think of
the Fly. Yeah.
Right.
The Thing, even.
Right. And yeah, The Thing. Exactly. They're different expressions from the same source material, but you just kind of love them each on their own merits. And it's really silly. Like I was talking to someone, they were kind of laughing at me with some of their comments. And yeah, I get that the production values are better or more sophisticated here, but there's other merits to, it's just a different expression of it. So there's more to storytelling than just modern production values.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will say, and I'm kind of going to go off on my own here because I'm going to talk about the book, is I really thought the films took the best bits of the book. They certainly left behind. There's some very troublesome stuff in the book. They didn't even touch it, which is absolutely correct. It really is. It's one of the problems with the book is there's a certain section in it near the end which is really questionable and quite unpleasant actually. But King is such a great writer. You kind of read it and you can get through it, but the actual what's going on is really uncomfortable.
Do you feel that? Do you think that's another example of like Tommy Knocker's lack of editorial oversight?
Possibly. It is like, what were they thinking by putting this in? But they did.
Is it the scene I have heard
It's
about? Is it the one with
the young
Beverly?
children, indulging in sexual behaviour as a way of trying to figure out how to get out of a certain situation. It's very troublesome, and it's written in almost like a revelatory experience for a girl, which is not right. It's just not right. It's simply that. I have the same problem when I've read Lolita with Nabokov. The lovely writing doesn't make the material being discussed any less comfortable. In fact, it makes it worse in some ways, because it's like, why am I in this headspace of this thing that I know is just completely wrong?
Yeah, I had the same reaction. I just saw a trailer for a film coming out called The Good Boys. Have you seen that?
No.
Where it's like these young kids. They're like, they're preteens, and there's all kinds of raunchy adult humor. And I'm thinking, like, this is like kind of perverse. Like I really mourn like some loss of innocence with stories about children. I'm thinking about the actors, the young actors, engaging with very, very adult material.
Yeah.
It's
troublesome,
just,
right?
It takes me out. It's not funny, and I'm like, I start to, so not to get on a soapbox, but it's troublesome. Like this is like what we're at. We laugh at this kind of material with little kids. Yeah.
There's also a slightly, it's much more in King's wheelhouse and much less uncomfortable what I'm talking about. There is a whole section involving Patrick Hofstadter, who is a minor character in the first one. It does appear in the second one as basically a ghost or a walking corpse kind of character. But in the book, he's a psychopath, a pure psychopath, indulging in psychopathic behaviours, which is a little troubling because he's a child, but he's doing what basically young psychopaths do. So it's kind of hard to read, actually.
Yeah.
So
they did a great job with all these corpse-looking characters, like the friend to
Bowers, who is Patrick Hofstadter in this version, but in the book it's much less of that kind of relationship.
Yeah, every time I think of Bowers, I want to say Buddy Repperton, but that's the movie Christine.
Yes,
because it reminds me of Christine too, because there was that aspect of like the corpses riding around in a car.
And it's one of King's typical bullies, isn't it? Ace Merrill from Stand By Me, Henry Bowers from this, and so on. So yeah,
they're all basically the same guy. King admits that. He says he has certain stock characters where they're all kind of the same guy.
Indeed. However, I'm not of a mind to say I really think that should have been cut from the book. Once a book is out, I think I don't mind alternate versions, but I don't agree with losing versions of stuff. I'm happy with the second version of The Stand, as long as the first one is still available. I don't know if it is.
Well, it's funny you say that, because did you hear the news? They're going to be doing like this extended miniseries of The Stand, and Stephen King is writing he's freshening up the ending again.
Oh, is he? That's interesting.
Yeah,
now, I've got no objection to that, as long as they're all available, right?
And did you notice in this movie there was that running gag about how the writer, how his endings suck?
That was amazing. That really did make me laugh. We're missing out half the start, which is fine. Someone could go see the movie. We're missing. There's a lot of Easter eggs in there. Yeah, that thing was funny. And Peter Bogdanovich shows up in here with a cameo. He's the director who wants the new ending to the and Stephen King as well.
Yeah, and Stephen King. Stephen King had a pretty meaty cameo. It was really good.
He did well as well. It was good, well done.
Oh yeah. I always loved Stephen King. People think he was bad in Creepshow. I thought he was great in Creepshow. I think he's terrific all the time.
Yeah. I think we're kind of winding up now. Let's just go before we go through the feedback. Have you got any last thoughts or comments about chapter 2?
Like I said before, I think it's a successful translation to the screen. I think it's a long movie. Part two. What is it? 3
It's
hours
3
long.
hours,
This thing.
yeah, I think. Close to.
That's a long movie. I was literally Stephen King calls it the Fanny factor of like movies being too long, which is why he likes the miniseries template. But man, I was literally hitting that. I was like, this seat is not comfortable enough for me to get through another hour of this film. But I thought it was good. I found it like a good. It looked like they made great decisions on what to distill and throw away from the source material, and it was reverent to the miniseries too, in a way. I feel so. I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, it was solid. In the ending was quite unusual. It reminded me a little of the miniseries ending. The way that Pennywise was represented right at the end was quite
That's right.
odd, right? It was quite odd.
Well, that spider-like thing. You're at his nest, and Pennywise is this parasitic, interdimensional thing, and I guess the form he chooses most is the clown. But you're seeing like the real it there, and it's spider-like, and it's very interesting. I was fine with it. I found it. I thought the special effects were great. I heard someone criticizing the effects. I thought they were terrific.
I thought the M one was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just when Pennywise becomes the weird little baby thing. It's just odd.
Yeah. It was like, you know what it is? What I thought was interesting there was how through their faith or unwillingness to be scared by him and their faith and their ability to kill him, it was everything was their belief, and then as a consequence, Pennywise's belief, and what they did was diminish him, and then he literally diminishes into almost nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting because Pennywise, it seems to me, if he's got you, he doesn't have to scare you, kind of thing. You are already scared, and that's easy meat, as it were, for Pennywise. Is when he's trying to scare you is when he's not as strong.
Yeah, it's like the old FDR quote: "We have nothing to fear but fear itself," and that's how Pennywise operates.
Yeah, and indeed, it always makes me think of Freddy Krueger. Actually, how he operates, and I always felt that Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street was an inspiration to it. I think King was somewhat influenced by Freddy Krueger, and in turn from that, Mr. Dark from Something Wicked This Way Comes. They're all similar kind of characters in many respects. Anyway, let's get to the feedback. Now, you actually did post in your group TV Terror that we were doing this and asked for some feedback, and we did get some. So I'll just do that one first, and we also posted in UNH to get feedback. But on your TV Terror group, Vic Sage came back and he said, I quite enjoyed it and thought on the whole it was scarier than the first one, a little more cosmic horror. I also thought the ending on the whole was more uplifting. Interesting. I thought is he comparing it to the miniseries? I'm not sure what he's comparing it to, but I always thought the miniseries was pretty uplifting, actually, personally. Yeah,
and King is often a bit sappy and uplifting in stories like this. So, but I agree with him. It was uplifting. It was touching at the end.
And then we get April Cox Hinderleiter, who says, I was disappointed they left out the turtle. No, we kind of mentioned the turtle. The turtle was in the Ritual of Chud. Now, I have to mention, now, I've read the book several times, and I'm not quite sure on my facts here, but actually, if I remember rightly, the Ritual of Chud is a Tibetan or Nepalese ritual. Whereas in this movie, it's presented as a sort of Native American ritual.
Yes.
And the whole point about the ritual Chud in the book is it's a battle of wits. It's not a battle, a physical fight. It's a battle of wits. The idea is you meet a demon, and I think it's the first one to make each other laugh. And you bite down on its tongue, and it bites down on yours, and you do battle of wits until one of you wins. That is how it's described. Now, I don't know if there's a real ritual called that, but in the actual book. But the idea is it's a battle of wills rather than a battle of physical strength, right?
Yeah, I can see them making it a Native American thing, just so they can kind of, just continue that through line of how it goes back to early history in that locale.
Yeah, and funny enough, that whole vibe made me think of Kolchak. I definitely remember there's certainly one episode of Kolchak where there's a sort of Native American stuff along the same lines. It's kind of weird.
Well, it's weird. I'll talk about it in one of my new episodes for my podcast, but I'm watching the TV show Roswell, and there's stuff just like it in that show where the alien stuff goes back in history, and the Native Americans know about it. And it was almost the same kind of situation.
Okay, and the same themes are actually explored in Twin Peaks. Native American stroke extra-dimensional, otherworldly things.
Yeah.
It's
in X-Files too.
Yeah, indeed. We also got some feedback. So that covers the feedback from TV Terror. We also got some feedback in the United Nations Horror. Will Ham says it was much better than the first pass. He has a clear preference for Chapter 2. Pennywise was better, but still not Tim Curry. Well, no one's ever going to be Tim Curry. That we all agree with that. But Bill Skarsgård does a great Pennywise here, and it's a different Pennywise, as we've discussed. It's just a different version, right?
Yeah, this is at this point we're debating, your favorite Joker,
Indeed. And again, April comes back with, what I want to know is, where is the turtle? And she says, I saw turtle teasers. Disappointed. I don't remember any, but I'd have to rewatch the film. But there could have been if there was like a flash of a shell or something somewhere, but I didn't notice it myself. I think we've covered the fact we both see them as comparable films, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. For me, like I said before, you put them together, you have one long story, and I don't see the gaps.
Yeah, and me neither. I was going to ask for a score, but I think that's a bit crass here. I'm going to just say this seems like a strong recommend to me. Would you agree?
Absolutely. If you've seen the novel, if you like the miniseries, give this stuff a try if you haven't gotten to them yet.
Yeah, that's good advice. These are all solid sort of materials to consume. I will be certainly buying this on Blu-ray when it comes out and looking forward to seeing it again. So I think that winds it up. So thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Mark. This was fun, and I think this bodes well for some regular broadcasting together.
Yes. We'll look for more crossovers, UNH and Kingology crossovers in future, and TV Terror too, right?
And hey, speaking of crossovers, I just want to, if I may indulge, I have a kind of crossover in that my last episode was with Anthony D.P. Mann, and I just want to plug that for anyone who has been missing the Horror Etc. podcast, because that's another one in our mix of favorite shows and this whole community that I was hoping would feel like an old talk with Anthony and Ted.
Yes, it's great. Oh, I really like that episode. I thought it was a great episode. I love that guy anyway, so...
Yeah, he's good people.
Yeah, go check out TV Terror and pick that up, especially if you're missing Horror, etc. Okay, then let's say our goodbyes. So, thank you very much, Anthony.
Thanks, Mark. Let's do it again soon.
Yes, and it's bye from me.
Hail to the king, baby.